So I've had my eye on Trump's chart for a while because he has some very explosive astrology coming up mid-month. And by the way, who could have predicted that two narcissistic, egomaniacal cartoon villains who are probably both drug addicts would eventually go after each other like this? I wonder who would see that coming. And by the way, before we even go into Trump's chart, remember last year on July 13th when there was an attempted unaliving of Donald Trump? So that day we had a conjunction forming between Mars and Uranus. Mars being action and passion and energy, but also the planet that rules like weapons and acts of violence and war. And Uranus, which is sort of like sudden things, surprising things, and disruption. And when these two get together, we have kind of like this explosive kind of energy. And that at 25, 26 degrees of Taurus happens to be right where Donald Trump's midheaven is. As you can see right here, Donald Trump has 24 degrees Taurus on his midheaven. The midheaven to do with like career, visibility, public reputation, sort of how you're seen. And it's like the very public, it's like the most public kind of part of your chart. So cut to June 14th, 2025. We have a very similar lineup happening in the sky around that day. We have only this time Mars is not going to be in Taurus, it's going to be in Leo, which is a square aspect to Uranus. So again, this is very like explosive, disruptive energy. And it is in a way that is actually even more personal for Trump himself because it is happening right on his ascendant. And I'm not saying, by the way, that he's going to have some other unaliving attempt on him, although maybe that could happen. It's just more that there's this explosive, disruptive energy happening in these very kind of personal parts of his chart. So there's this feeling of like there's going to be continued blowups around him throughout the month of June, especially as we get closer to the mid-month and also around the full moon in Sagittarius on June 11th. This energy could also be impacting his health as well, as the first house in the ascendant is connected to physical body, vitality, and one's health. Furthermore, that day is actually his birthday. Also, in like 3 days before, we have a full moon, and it's right at 21 degrees of Sagittarius, right exactly where his moon is in his chart. It's giving like some big event that is very personal to him. And also the moon in his chart rules over the 12th house, which can be like hidden enemies or people like working against you. And lastly, one more thing, that Mars-Uranus square that I was talking about, that very explosive energy, that is baked into his solar return for his entire age 79. When he turns 79, that energy is going to be baked into his chart. And that energy in the solar return chart is happening in the 9th house of like foreign powers and foreign countries and also the courts. And then the 12th house of like hidden enemies and hidden, like sabotaging hidden agenda.